Hi guitarlings, I'm Gray at Hub Guitar. Today we're going to do a Celtic tune arranged for solo fingerstyle guitar called the Connaughtman's Rambles. So this is what's called a jig, meaning that it has a meter of 2 pulses per measure, but that each of those are divided into 3 like this. Dot, 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 dot. So it's a very common meter in Celtic music, and you have to develop a feeling for the triplet in order to play the tune accurately. I'm also using a capo on the 2nd fret, which is something that I like to do, but it's optional. It's totally up to you if you want to use the capo or not. Please note that this tune is in the dadgad tuning, so that's D, A, D, G, A, D. You'll need to get your guitar into the dadgad tuning in order to play this tune. You simply cannot play it in standard tuning. It will sound all kinds of wrong. Alright, so we're starting with a little pickup measure at the 9th fret of the 4th string, followed by the open 2nd and 3rd strings. And that creates a nice little cascading effect, which we resolve to the 4th fret of the 4th string with the open D. After we do that, we're on measure 1 now. I've got my 3rd finger on that 4th fret, and I put my index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. That way I can pluck the whole measure pretty freely. Now for measure 2, I like to lay my index finger across and do a little bit of a half bar, and then I stand it back up for the next note on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. That way I can get those open strings in there without interfering. Or you could just do 2 different fingers. Just don't lift up a finger until you need to. Notice that I don't lift up that last one until the end because I want to maximize my sustain for every note that I play. For measure 3, we're using the D major shape again, and I've got my 3rd finger on the 4th fret of the 4th string, index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, open, and then we do this sort of slur pattern. So 4, 2, open, open, and at the end we do hammer to 2, and then hammer to 4, pull the 2, and pull the open. The hammer-on to the 2nd fret note is a little bit longer, and the last 3 notes are sort of like little grace notes. So play around with the timing of that, and think of those as 2 separate things. Hammer-on, and then the last slur, which is hammer, pull, pull. A lot of students find those hammer-ons and pull-offs difficult, but I think that they're worth the practice. You can just sit there hammering and pulling, for 15 or 20 minutes until you start to get a grip on that technique. It really is worth the time to invest in your hammer-ons and pull-offs because they're used in almost every style of guitar music. Now at measure 4, we've got a bar chord to do our B minor, so we're going to bar across the 2nd fret, and we're going to put our pinky on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, with our ring finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. Then we lift up the pinky to the 2nd fret, which is the bar note, and then we re-articulate or re-pluck the 4th fret and pull off to the 2nd fret, which is still the bar, and get the pinky to the 5th fret of the 4th string. Now that's a little bit tricky, and it requires a lot of flexibility. So just practice that nice and slowly. So now we're back to measure 5, which is the same as measure 1. And measure 6 is the same as measure 2, except that the melody changes a little bit at the end there. For measure 7, we've got this big long slur, so we're going to play an open G string. And we're going to start with our pinky on the 5th fret of the high E string, pull to 4, and pull to 2. So that's pinky, ring, index. Pull to open, and then you can hammer back to 4 with the ring finger and pull back to 2. And then we've got 2 open strings, and 4, 2, 4. So you can use your index finger and your ring finger for that on A sus2 at measure 8. So here's the first half. So we're going to start with a pickup for measure 9. That's going to be our third finger or our ring finger on the 4th fret of the 4th string. And we're going to go straight into a bar to get the B minor. So we're going to pluck the 2nd and 4th together, and then the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. And we've got to get our pinky under the 4th fret of the 3rd string as well. You might notice that's actually a unison, which is one of the cool things about this tuning. You can play a lot of unisons, which is when you have the same note but on 2 different strings. And that helps the melody sound a little bit more alive. Then we lift up our bar for the open 2nd string and switch to the 2nd fret of the 3rd string for another unison. So we've got this unison and this unison. That's measure 9. Measure 10, just an open A string with some pull-offs and hammer-ons. So I'm just using my index and 3rd fingers for those. And then back to the same idea for measure 11. Take note of that quarter note there. Da, 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 da. This is measure 12. Da, 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 da. Measure 13 is very similar. And measure 14, it starts to get a little bit more interesting. So start measure 14 with your ring finger on the 4th fret of the big string and an open 4th string. Put your index finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, and then ring finger moves to the 4th fret of the 5th string, followed by an open 4th string. And then we use our index finger to get to the 2nd fret, and we slide up to 4. So for measure 15, I've got my middle finger still there on the 5th fret, open 3rd, and I've got my index finger still on the 4th fret from the previous measure. And I've got to get my pinky under the 7th fret of the 5th string. Then, once I've played that 7th fret, I do lift up the 4th string to the open string, go back to the 4th, 2nd, open, and 2, 2, 2. So it's really those last few measures that are pretty tricky. You want to practice those a lot and focus on having all the notes kind of blend and meld together. So here's the second half. All right, so that's it for the Connaughtman's Rambles. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and thanks so much for watching.